Hi there, Cycle Camp here, and we're going to start off this video on the Japanese guns of Tulsa with the Nambu Type 14. So this is a firearm that I picked up in Tulsa. Again, it's a fairly old firearm. It's pretty straightforward. These guns are considered fairly dangerous to shoot. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do that or not, but just in case, while I was at the show, I did pick up some Nambu type stuff. You can see it looks an awful lot like a Tokarev, not quite as big, and it's not anywhere near as powerful. But this is basically the 8mm Nambu shell. You can see it's a neck down, 8mm. So pretty straightforward stuff. I picked these up at Aardvark Laboratories, LLC, and the gentleman at Aardvark was nice enough after I bought this box of Nambu. He also gave me a box of Smith & Wesson 32 for the Smith & Wesson brake top that I had in my previous video. So if I get that one close enough to running, I'll be able to shoot that one as well. But that's basically the ammunition inside of one of these. Now, like every other gun that I purchased, it seems like every pistol that I bought except one was damaged or defective in one way or another. So in this particular firearm, this is the safety, and in the rear position it is considered safe, and when you go to pull the trigger, you cannot get the trigger to pull all the way. It will not go off. And when you come out here, you should be able to get the trigger to pull, but you'll notice the trigger is not pulling. And the way this gun works is inside. Let me see if I can turn it. You see this bar, which goes, the rest of it goes underneath the hand grip where you can't see it. But in the back here, that bar, let me see if I can turn it so you can see it. That bar is supposed to move downwards, and that is what releases the spring. Well, it turns out that there's a problem with the safety. So if I give it a good shove, let me see if I can get it so you can actually see it. So here's the bar. There we go. I'm trying to get it to catch the light. Okay, can you see it moving there on the back? That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to come down. And it turns out there's a problem. There's a part on this safety that is damaged, and that's why it is not working properly. So what we're going to do is strip it and put a new one on. So I have a new safety. I'm not exactly sure where I put it, but I have oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so I have a new safety catch that I was able to order from a little parts place, and this is what the safety catch generally looks like. So that's the safety catch, and the part that's damaged on this, or on the other one, is if you look real close, you can see there's a flat spot here, and then there's a piece that sticks out. I don't know if you can see that well against my hairy hand here, but there's a little piece that sticks out right there in the corner, and basically that runs inside a channel inside the firearm, and that keeps the safety from popping out. And this other flat part, this flat cut in the safety, so if you look here, you can see there's a flat cut in the safety. That's where this bar has to move up into in order for the gun to fire. So what's happening is, because this little piece is damaged, the safety is not in far enough, and the bar cannot come inside that. The bar cannot come up inside that cutout. So what we're going to do is take this apart and see what happens. So in order to strip one of these down, there's a button on the back here. You push the. Oh, actually, what you're supposed to do is remove the magazine, lock the action back. Well, obviously, idiot that I am. Try this again. Okay, now you lock the action back, and you press this and start to remove this little cocking knob here, and you can see how it springs back out again every couple of turns. Well, that's what holds it together. So you're going to pull that off, then that releases this little keeper, and there's the spring. This is the firing pin spring. Sorry, do this down where you can see it. And this is the actual firing pin. And this firing pin, this leg of the firing pin, holds down inside of this bolt mechanism and catches against that arm we were talking about before. So there's the back side of that arm that actually moves down in order to release that. So I don't know if I can, let me push this again, see if I can get it. I can't do it with the thing cocked. So, but that's basically how you start to disassemble that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the rear piece back on, and we're going to go ahead and drop the what do you call it? Sorry, how to do that? Get a good grip on it without getting caught by it. So now what we have to do is we have to take the grip panels off. Do that real quick. There's one grip panel. Then we take the other grip panel. I've only taken this apart once, so please excuse me if I don't get this 100% right. And okay, so once we have removed the firing pin extension, the spring, and the firing pin, and we've let the bolt come forward, we've turned out the grip panels, what we do now is we press the magazine release and we pull down on the firing assembly, and that pops right off. Okay, and once you've done that, you can remove the firing pin assembly, I'm sorry, the magazine release, and be very careful. There's a screw here that's very easy to lose if you don't take it out. So we take out the firing pin assembly. Now we can rotate the safety lever down. I'm going to take that, sorry. Then we take off that rear knob, and now the bolt will come forward, the two return springs, this little action toggle here, and now we can pull this safety down and remove it. And what you will find, I know it's difficult, again it's difficult to see, but you will see that the piece that is supposed to hold this in there is totally gone. It's been torn off, probably by inappropriate disassembly. So we're going to take our brand new one, which has the little pin right there. You see that one? You can see the pin here right in the corner where the two pieces meet. You can see that little pin sticking out. Here you can see there is no pin. Pin is gone. That's why this. So that's causing this to be able to travel outwards, and that's what's allowing that's what's keeping the firearm from correctly. That's what's keeping this piece from being in far enough to correctly. Okay, I see what's going on. So what's happening is, I don't know if you can see it in here. Let me turn this other light off. So what's happening is the flat piece of metal. If I move this, you see that flat piece of metal there? It's actually in the way. So I'm going to have to take out the pin that retains that before we try to put that safety back in. So let's remove the pin. It's very easy. It's just held in very easily. Now you see this flat comes right out, and now we should be able to put this piece in all the way. Yeah, there we go. That goes all the way in now. There we go. I'll just get it to where it's the little ball catches right, and then I should be able to reinstall this firing mechanism again. So we're going to get this lined up again, and we'll put the little pin in from the back. This pin in the back has a big head on it. See, I don't know if you can see it. See the big head, and that's what holds it from the inside. And of course, when the bolt is in there, the bolt is what keeps it from falling back out again. So it's a little hard to reach. They've got it down in there a little ways, and my big fat hands have a hard time reaching in there. There we go. So that pins back in. And it is moving properly. I can see it. You can see it moving like it should. All right, so let's see if we can get this back together. So we'll drop this in. Oops, watch the spring. I lost one of the recoil springs. Back. I'm going to throw this back on here so it doesn't take off on me. All right, then we're going to put the little spring. Oops, I got to screw that up. Yeah, I screwed that up. Try again. This is spring. I lost the toggle. I didn't have it in all the way. It dropped down into the magazine well, which is not correct. There we go. Try again. Okay. And we'll put the spring in for the magazine catch. This is the magazine catch, and this little dimple here, this little dimple right there is what catches that spring. We'll put that in, and that is held by this trigger mechanism. Slide that right back in, push that down. There we go. So that's all together. All right. And then we're going to put the side panels back on. That's the wrong one. Try again. Got to be kind of careful with these side panels. There's a very thin piece of the actual grip panel that catches a screw, and I can see if you'd over tighten it too much, you would definitely bust it. Be kind of careful with that. So we'll turn that over. Put that back together. Throw the other grip panel on there. They use very short screws for most of the stuff, which kind of makes sense because you got to clear the magazine. I don't want to tighten these up too much. I don't want to bust the grip panels. Okay, so and we're going to pull this back with the magazine in place to lock this out. Remove the knob. I'm going to slap the firing pin back in there, and then the firing pin spring. This little piece is called the firing pin extension. So we'll put that back in there. Now this is a little bit tricky because you've got to put this together. This leg is eventually going to ride in that groove, but when you turn it, it'll spin, and then it won't line up with the cut in the bottom here. There's a cut in the bottom where that has to go through. See, it's got to be in like that, so the cut will. So we'll go in the cut. So basically, when you start putting it together, you just have to kind of feel it and see where it's going to go. And it usually takes me a couple of shots to get it right. So we'll just fart with that a little bit. And that pin extension will pop out, but you just reset it, just push it in until this knob, this cocking knob is flush, and the flat parts go to the top and bottom, so we're right where we ought to be. Okay, so again we'll remove the magazine. We're just going to let the guy go forward. don't feel, that doesn't feel right still. So this is safe and it doesn't go anywhere. But this is forward. And I should be able to pull the trigger. Oh, I probably got it's got a magazine disconnect, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I needed the magazine. So now I can pull it. And of course I can't. This is a stupid design. So now it's cocked. And you can't really see it, but you can tell it's cocked because the firing pin is behind that little steel plate. See, there's the tip of the firing pin. You can just barely see it. And then this silver part is part of the arm that's going to move. And when I pull the trigger, that little plate, if you keep an eye on it there, see it's moving. And when I move it far enough, that's when the gun fires. So we've got it squared away, and if I want to take a chance on firing it, it looks like it's ready to go. Again, this is the Nambu Type 14. We just had to replace the safety handle because the little burr was busted, and basically was allowing this safety mechanism handle to drift away from the body of the gun, and that caused the firing mechanism here to not be able to go up into the slot. So you've got this slot here cut in the edge. You can see it there. You can see that slot that's cut in the edge there. Well, if this is moved a little bit out, that piece of metal can't recess into that slot. You can't fire the firearm, and that was the problem that I was running into. So, but that's why, again, you don't pay as much for these as you do as when you don't pay list price for any of this stuff when you go to a show. So that's the Nambu. Now we'll go look at its bigger, older brother. Okay, so let's take a look at the second firearm I purchased in Tulsa. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, I did not buy this firearm at the Wanamaker show. I did buy it in Tulsa, however, so I am counting it in my list of guns that were purchased on my Tulsa trip. And most of you guys might recognize some parts of this gun. This is an Arasaka Type 99, but this is a last-ditch 99, and folks, it is rough. They definitely spared all expenses when they were making this thing. Please excuse me for holding it upside down. You'll find out why in a minute, because it's just a lot easier for me to show you the parts I want to show you with it upside down. So some of the things that identify some of the real obvious things that identify a last ditch. This is a last ditch gun. Also came with the bayonet. I'm not a bayonet guy, but I'll take whatever I can get. You'll notice the conical cut to the bolt handle has a conical cut to it. You'll notice that there is no tangent sight. The sights don't move up and down. There is a single fixed aperture sight. That's the rear sight. If you look in the back, you will see that the butt plate is just a piece of wood that's been nailed on to the back of the butt. Again, a very rough gun. Let me show you a couple other really interesting things about this. So I have disassembled this gun to take it apart and look at it. No rust, very little rust on it, but the front nose cap is pinned in place. Does not have screws. This is pinned right to the barrel. They did that to cheapen how fast they could make these, and as a result, it would be very difficult to get this thing apart. So what they also did, if you slide this front barrel band up, you'll notice that the stock has been cut. So the stock has been cut up here, which of course makes this a little wobbly. And that's another really nasty thing that happened to this poor gun. I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me stand up a second. But here if you look at the barrel, you see these tool marks. I mean, it's just loaded with tool marks. The only place it actually flattens out is up here near the front after the front barrel band. But there are just tool marks all over this. It's just a terrible, terrible piece of manufacture. the barrel bands are very rough. There's machine marks and gouges and stuff all over them. It is definitely a fair example of a last-ditch gun. Now, you may say, hey, what's going on in the back here? Well, when I purchased this gun, first of all, it did have the mum. You can see they tried to grind the mum out. You can just see the lower part of the pedals here on the bottom, and of course you've got the hole for the gas escape hole, the vent hole, in case something goes horribly wrong with your ammunition. Also, the latch that holds the bolt in. I mean, look how loose that is. It's just terribly, terribly done. So it's a great example of a last-ditch gun. Now I have if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I have a Type 99 that's in much better shape. But when I got this particular firearm did not have, oh crap, this particular firearm did not have a safety, and it does not have a return spring for the firing pin. Not return spring, no firing pin spring. And I think I got a problem because I put this together, and I'm not going to be able to, oh, maybe I will. Need to see if I can figure out how to get it apart again, since I don't have the stuff on it. So give me a second, let me get this apart and I'll show you the rest. Okay, we got the bolt out of there. I had put the bolt and the firing pin back in there, and of course since I didn't have the rest of the parts in, it allowed the firing pin to flop around to an unnatural position, which jammed the bolt, and I had to take the gun fully apart in order to get it out. But be that as it may, here's the bolt from the Arisaka Type 99. Again, notice the incredibly crummy machining here. You can just see tool marks all over this part. Really bad. Same thing here. Here's the firing pin. Tool marks on the firing pin. You know, very, very bad. So, you know, they call these last-ditch guns for a reason. These guys were in desperate straits. But unfortunately, you can't use the gun like it is. So what's missing here is a firing pin spring and the rear safety knob. Well, it turns out you can buy those. So here is a firing pin spring, and here is a safety knob. Now this is supposed to be a last-ditch safety knob. Now most of the last-ditch safety knobs I have that I've seen do not have this patterning. Okay, but what this is poorly machined again, and it's almost like it's made out of some kind of, it looks like steel here and some kind of like a pot metal cap. So I'm going to assume that it is one of the last ditch, maybe an earlier last ditch, the not quite so last ditch, the next to the last ditch, I don't know. But that's basically what goes on with that. And so basically you just take this puts tension on that spring, and then, now let me see, this is going to go up like this, and this is going to end like that. So let's take a look at how we put this together. It's going to have to go in all the way, and then like that. There we go, and hook it on. So that should do it, because when that goes in straight, when you want to set the latch, you turn it that way, I believe. Okay, so that should do it. Let's see if we can get it back in the gun, okay? Depress the magazine follower. Okay. Yep, and that works. So now it's locked. You can't open it. You can't pull the trigger. The trigger's totally disconnected. If you push in and turn anti-clockwise, I can now remove the bolt. This cocks on close, as you can see, and I can now fire the firearm. Okay, so basically that was one of the things that I picked up. I wanted to get a good example of a very bad last-ditch gun. This actually, believe it or not, a lot of the numbers on this match. Not all of them, but quite a few of them match. I think the number on the bolt, I want to say the bolt match. There's a number on here someplace. Sorry, 5. It's got a 5.9 something on it. Let's take a look. Well, it's 590 on on the thing. So I guess maybe it matches more than I thought, which is kind of unusual. In these last ditch guns, they weren't really very careful about keeping them all together or any of that stuff. One other interesting thing with this is most guns that I like to use, if you pull the trigger while you're trying to close them, you can get it to close without having the spring set. But these Arasakas won't do that. You have to actually put them in and dry fire them if you want to put them away without the spring being compressed. Not that that really makes any difference, because everybody that knows about springs knows that springs do not lose their tension from being compressed. They lose their tension from being operated. But neither here nor there. So real cheap, just screwed on, instead of being carved out with a nice plate to hold the strap. The riveting is done fairly poorly. It really is just it's a good example of a really crummily made gun, and it looks like it's seen better days. But that is the second Japanese firearm that I bought at Tulsa, and hope you enjoyed seeing it and hearing some information about how you can tell it's a last ditch gun, and hope you really enjoyed it. So take it easy, have a great afternoon, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.